Um, of course, I do very much appreciate Pastor Lumide and his beautiful wife for once again giving me the privilege to speak again this morning. And I don't take that for granted. Thank you so very much. Thank you. And also a very good morning to Pastor Shegun. Thank you for being here with us again. Praise the Lord. This morning we're going to be doing something slightly different. I wear several hats. One of the hats I love the most is cooking, being a chef. But on a more serious note, I am passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about management development as it relates to organization. But particularly, I have the privilege of working in faith-based and non-faith-based organizations so far. But I am more passionate about other in kingdom business. I am more passionate about leadership and management within the sphere of the church or any organization that is involved in establishing and advancing the kingdom of God and the agenda of God here on earth. And I have been privileged over the last 10 years to be actively involved in leadership development and putting management, structures and systems in place. It's quite strange. I know, yes, myself and Pastor Shegun, we've been working together as consultants, and we've done quite a number of work, like I said, within faith-based and non-faith-based organizations. And we have seen tremendous results with all the projects that we've had in time past and in recent past. We're still working on a few things right now that we are doing with a couple of other institutions. But what I want to say is that there is need for us to draw a balance between spirituality and practicality. We can't be overly prophetic, and when it comes to being pragmatic, we slack on that. And unfortunately, a lot of ministry organizations place emphasis on, the prophetic aspect of church as an organization, which is all the ministry and all the spiritual things that it's very needed that goes on. But if a church will be transformational, if a church or a Christian community organization will be reformational, then we need to go beyond looking at the spiritual aspect of things or the prophetic aspect of things or all the other stuff we do. And we also need to pay attention to systems. We need to pay attention to balance. We need to pay attention to structures, management, leadership, everything that we need to do, because you see, that's the practical aspect of ministry. Jesus said something. He said, two statements I want to make, and I want to quote from Jesus' statement. He said, who is the man that wants to build a tower that would not first sit down to do what? To count the cost. Now, that is practical. You can't pray that. You can't prophesy that. You can't decree that. You have to sit down. You have to plan. You have to budget. So it involves a lot of practical stuff. And anything practical requires capacity. But the good thing about capacity is that capacity can be developed. That's the beauty of leadership. That's why anyone can be a leader, because leadership is essentially about capacity building. And anybody can do that if you can apply yourself to relevant principles that will enable you, will carry out that. Now, another statement Jesus said in Matthew 16 is that I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. But that word build, from the root understanding of that word, is more applicable in the practical realm as opposed to, supernaturally building the church of God. So it requires a lot of details to do what we do. So some of the things I'm going to share this morning would not only be applicable to us as a ministry or as a church, but I believe that some of us here would also have businesses, will have our own organizations, one way or the other. Like, I know Kofo has his own organization. So somehow we would learn something this morning that will help us, position us, for greater relevance. Because you see, when you take out leadership and management from ministry, you lose relevance. Because there are so many things. For instance, Pio was talking about government. One of the things that one of the projects that I've been really working on right now, and it's something that I've been pursuing and something I've been bringing on board as I travel, because when I travel, a lot of, people see more of the apostolic side of me, but if you're close to me, P-Shex will tell you that I do more of what I'm doing this morning And people don't know that because I don't put a face to this aspect of me, but I feel I'm more called and anointed to churches with what I'm doing this morning. And one of the things, what I realize is that not many people value things like this because, we want the hype, we want to jump and all of that. But for me, I love sitting down with pastors. So this morning, I'm happy I'm able to do this speaking, but I do more of this sitting down 3 days, 4 days, boot camp with pastors and leaders. And we get out our drawing board and charts. P-Shakes can tell you, and I do this in several places because, like I said, this is a practical thing. So I'm going to attempt to share a few things this morning, with us that will be beneficial when it comes to systems, when it comes to procedures and how, back-end stuff runs this morning. So we are going to go quickly into, I want to talk about, I know I kind of tweaked, what you asked me to speak on is basically system developments, So instead of using that long phrase, I just want to just stick to system development so that it helps me to coordinate my thinking, So we want to look at systems development this morning. For every organization that will be relevant, there's a lot of back-end stuff that is required, very required. Pio was talking about government this morning, talking about all of that this morning, and it's very essential that we need to apply ourselves to such knowledge. One of the campaign I'm currently engaging on right now, and I was sharing a testimony with Pio recently. I was in the wedding, and I met a white guy, didn't know where he worked, he just asked me one question. He said, "What is the Lord saying to you right now?" And, and of all things that I could have said, but one of the things that is currently burning in my heart right now is Christian competence, especially as it relates to marketplace. Because I realized that, we are not able to make as much impact. And then having been involved in revival, study revival at, at spiritual level, at, social level, I realized that our generation will be more of social revivalist as opposed to spiritual revivalist. And that requires competence in whatever aspect of life that we are involved in. So it's currently something as a campaign, and I've been training people, I've been teaching people, I've been recommending books that personally I've been reading to further equip me because, like he said again, when you understand your next level of assignment, for instance, my next phase of assignment is in government. So I've been studying a lot into that because when the door opens, they say when opportunity meets preparation, there is performance. And then when opportunity comes, it is too late for preparation. So I don't want to walk through those doors and then begin to say M. That would be ridiculous and it won't speak well on our kingdom character and culture. So I'm on that campaign for Christian competence now because that's the way we can see and influence our society today and our world today through the power of the gospel that we carry, and it's important that we see the gospel from another light. And I like to see the gospel from the eye of Martin Luther King, because what he said is, if the gospel you preach does not address everyday issue, then the gospel is not the gospel. But the mistake is that those that, God gave the initial revelation of the gospel only had partial knowledge of the gospel, which was the gospel of salvation. So it was all about man's conscience, man's soul from the aspect of his spiritual relationship with God. But the Bible did not only address man's soul as his, relationship, spiritual relationship with God, but it's also his earthly function here on earth. So, but the gospel of salvation only addressed man's relationship and conscience with God, but left is a social relevance. That's why Proverbs 23 verse 7 says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So when Jesus came preaching the message of the kingdom, which is repent, of course we know is the word metanoia, which means have a change of thought that leads to a drastic change in behavior. And that is what revolution simply is. It's a drastic change in thinking that leads to a drastic change in behavior. So when Jesus said the kingdom of God is at hand, he wasn't talking about heaven. He was talking about a culture. I'm about to introduce a culture here on earth, but if you don't go through a renewal of mind, it will be difficult for you to function in this new organization. So it's more of practical things here that was left out when we were taught the gospel. But I thank God that we know better. And that's why, like he said, we need to study to know these things so that we can be applicable into this world. So I want to attempt to just share a few things about system developments. If you're ever going to have a successful business here, you have to have systems in place. You have to have structures. You have to understand how that works. I can't tell you everything that we can talk about systems today, but I will lay a foundation, and obviously I know it will add value to us one way or the other. All right. Systems development. Let's read a few things here. A system is a group of part of things working together as a whole. Now, the human body is an example of a system function. We have different parts in the body. That's why the Bible says the eye cannot say to the ear, I don't need you. The fingers cannot say to the toes, I don't need you. Every aspect of our being as humans are all connected. They are all serving one another. None is better than the other. No matter how small or how big or how visible or how hidden the parts of our body is, they are all connected. That's why I never could figure out when I was much younger, and when I have an eye situation and they give me eye drops, somehow I will be testing that drops in my throat. And I'm like, but this thing went through my eyes. But it's because it's connected. Somehow. There are some surgery that if you would have anywhere around your esophagus, the only way to access this will be through your ears. Because we are all connected. So that's how system works. So everywhere system is working right, there is health. Wherever there's health, there is growth. But I want you to understand, when it comes to the context of spiritual organization, kingdom organization, no one can make any living thing grow. It is God who has the power to make things grow and give birth to growth. So think about it. If the human body, which is referred to as a living organism, has to function perfectly, healthily, and when it comes to growth and increase by system, how much more an organization? So an organization also at its core must establish systems that allows it to function in its best capacity and increase its relevance and productivity. So let's look at a few benefits before we talk about how to build systems. Few benefits, we talked about it. It allows for growth. Wherever there's system, wherever things are working systematically, you can expect growth. So this explains to us the balance we need to introduce, between spirituality and practicality. Some people would rather spend weeks and days, which there is nothing wrong to that, praying for growth, while others will structure for growth. So this explains why many of our prayers is not answered, because we are not counting the cost. Recently, earlier this year, the Lord asked me a question. He said, if I give $1 million to Iwo right now, do you have a plan? Because I know you have a heart for charity. I know you have a heart for nation building. But do you have a plan to execute that $1 million? To be honest with you, I didn't have then. So already I just knew it was a waste of time praying for resources. Now the first question is, God, Lord, give us partners. But our partners going to be donating into your personal account. There's no system in place. But we would rather lean on the spiritual aspect of things. We're good at that. We like to sweep things under the spiritual carpet. We are not as pragmatic as we should be. So instead of praying for growth, there's nothing wrong with praying for growth, but you have to have done your assignment. There has to be a system in place. Because when the body system is working perfectly, you don't need to worry for body growth. You will grow. A child will grow if everything is working right. I think I'm disconnected. You can help me if I'm disconnected. I don't know why I was working with me. Okay. All right. It also allows for addition of skill beyond that of a leader. Now, let me tell you something. This is two ways. I want us to see these two ways, right? A lot of people, because a large chunk of us here would be involved in a system as opposed to being responsible to building a system. Now, a lot of people do not like to be a part of system. That's why a lot of system crash and collapse. You see, I want to encourage every one of us here who is not responsible for building a system, but you are part of a system, to embrace a system. Because the system, you see, a lot of people think systems are set in place to enable them to serve, yes, better and if more effective. But what a true system, well set up, has to do for you is to enable you release your potential. Amen. You see, it's like people don't understand the concept of going through the tertiary institution. You see, you may not graduate with the first class, but you have graduated with some set of skills that are applicable to life. If you can wake up early in the morning to study, even though you may not pass as you want, but the fact that you went through a period of time with that discipline of studying, waking early to study, because the system is set up to function like that, has added value to you as a human being on your onward journey in life. So embracing and submitting to system within an organization allows for you to maximize your potential. So when I look at people who rebel against system because they think through freedom is without system, because why? A system will challenge you, system will stretch you, system has to refine you, system has to define you, and system will confine you. But at the end of the day, it makes you fine. Why? Because you know what? You become a better person doing it. So many organizations crash because it has people who don't understand that when I embrace the system here, it's for my good. When I left the church where I was trained today, I'm no longer the 10 years I've been out of there today, but I don't go anywhere and don't make it known that, see, the system I was a part of made me. I'm different where I'm going. Why? Because unlike everybody that questioned the system, unlike everybody that rebelled against system, in the name of freedom and liberty, cannot smell where I am today. So system allows for additional skills beyond that of the leader. When a church is between 100 and 250, the pastor and his wife can grow a church to 200, max 250, but after then, it plateaus without system and without a people who submit to the system. So it's to your advantage as being part of a system, to embrace the system, to serve under the system, to build under the system. But when the people don't want to submit to the system, no matter what the pastor knows and what the pastor can do, there's still no change. So it's both ways. The leader must build system, and those who are in the team must embrace the system and carry out the objectives and the goals of the organization through the system. Very important. You need to see it that way. It prevents breakdown due to work stress. Where there's no system, people burn out, beginning from the leader. Beginning from the leader. And this is very important, especially for someone like me who I have different establishments in different locations that I cannot be at the same time. How do we keep it going? How do I still maintain my sanity? How do I still maintain focus if I have to be the one on top of everything? If there is no system. So I am not bogged out in any way, because to some extent there is a system that allows for everybody to take on responsibility. And all I need to do is to focus on what is my utmost responsibility. So I don't need to burn out. So that's why, when people say, how do you manage everything? It's a system. It doesn't have to be a big system. We're going to get there. But there's a system that handles everything somehow. So I can focus on what is most important to me as a person, because not everything can be important to me. Otherwise, there's going to be trouble. So there are things going on. For instance, we have 3 organizations in Nigeria right now. And I don't bother about anything. I don't speak to everybody. I only speak to one person. Only one person. Everything I want to do, no matter how urgent, no matter how I really want to get involved. For instance, practical example, I got a report from one of my pastors in Nigeria who coordinates all the other affairs. Some issue came up and he wanted me to deal with it. And I said, you know what, recently we had to revamp all our ministry document. I'm going to get there really. And I said, just carry what we've already put in our current policy out. I don't need to make a phone call. It's already in the policy. We spent almost 2 months just between August and September to revamp the whole document. And I said to him, I don't need to make a phone call. You can do it, because we already, and all the leaders have read through, and we have all signed and agreed that for the next phase of our ministry, this is the system that we're going to be running. So the system, when the system's in place, the system does the job. Don't let me jump ahead of myself. All right, so it prevents breakdown due to work stress. It focuses the resources of the ministry or organization around the common purpose. This is how without a system in place, there will be wastage. Without a system, there will be mismanagement. And I'm not talking about mismanagement of resources when it comes to financial resources. I'm talking about even energy. I'm talking about time. We'll spend a lot of time doing things that wouldn't move the central purpose of the organization forward. Because everybody does what they think is right. And when it comes to organization, we can't just do what we think is right. We must eliminate every possible form of assumption. Leadership is dead on. There's no experiment. You have to reduce to the barest minimum. Of course, there's a huge part of leadership that we teach about taking risk. But you don't want to take risk every day. Otherwise, you will mess things up. You will waste a lot of time. You will waste a lot of resources. That's why there is calculated risk. In fact, one of the current management principles at very top level management today is the principle of paranoia. And back then, maybe like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have been very negative, because what benefit is there in being paranoid? It's a negative thing. But now, CEOs are being introduced to that management principle right now. Because why? It allows them to foresee possible danger for the organization. So you can plan. So the question is that when top executive management gather in their boardroom, they will say, what if today the stocks drops? What do we do? What are the backup plans? Because, we, especially being, I'm not being stereotyped now, but, there are some things like my pastor, Reverend Sam, always say that. That's why you won't find Africans doing, what's it called now? What's this sport? Jumping out of the plane. Skydiving, cliff angling. We don't do those things, but maybe things are changing now, because we don't like to think of bottom line thinking. What could be the worst case scenario? A quick flip to spiritual aspect. That's why the enemy successfully puts fear in a lot of us. There's nothing wrong telling you what is your worst that you can do. Okay, I won't travel. Would that be the end of my life? But some of us cannot confront that, because once our heart is locked on something, We don't want to think of what if it doesn't happen. That's why many people don't make contingent plans. But now, talking about top level management, it's a principle that has been introduced as I speak to you now. They sit down, have sessions, and says, what is the worst thing that can happen to this organization? Can we bounce back? I was listening to Anthony Robbins, one of his sessions, and he was sharing a testimony about a man who, one of the people had inspired him. The man had started his business at a very early age, made a lot of money, but at 60, he lost everything, liquidated, as in ground zero. And at that time, his company was worth over $500 million or something. And at 60 years old, he lost everything. Somehow, I'm thinking, if this man does not have this sort of thinking pattern I'm talking about, to think about at some point in time, what if I lose all of this? What would have happened? But guess what? His company was worth $500 million, $500 million in 60 years. But between 60 and 64, he had made his first billion. 4 years of recovery. That's not prayer and fasting. You must know something. There must be structures in place. There must be systems, because you know why? Systems makes things predictable. You can tell. And once you have it, it's about doing the same thing, because all he did was to repeat the process. Now, with better perspective, which gave him an advantage. So in 4 years, he made over $1 billion. 4 years. After 60 years, use 60 years to make $500 million dollars. So the systems help you to channel every form of resources to the purpose. So we're talking about human resource here. We're talking about financial resource here. We're talking about time resource here. We're talking about even passion. Passion is a most needed resource, especially in today's world. You don't see, let me tell you something. Some things we take very lightly. Do you know that, discouragement has become one of the enemy's weapons for the end time? People are discouraged. Paul told Timothy, people will lose zeal for things. People will lose passion for things. And any organization that is ever going to make the most out of its purpose and its objective must be powered by people, a team who are passionate. In 2004, I had something that transformed my life personally because of at that time I discovered, that God had something to do with me in the nations. So, and I heard Bishop Edekwe, it was a leadership conference, and he said something that really transformed my life. He said, your passion is your qualification for a portion in the reformation of any nation you are sent to. So take out passion, no matter the size of the engine of the car, without gas in it, it's going nowhere. Passion is like fuel. Wherever it stops, your journey ends. So passion is a most needed resource in today's organization. That's why when I begin to sense any of my team members are beginning to lose out on passion, I'm worried, I'm concerned, I want to check it. Bill Ibels, pastor of Willow Creek, calls it, the funk. He says when people begin to lose passion, it smells the funk. Something is smelling, and they address it head on the spot. Because once people's passion run out, forget about it. There's nothing you can do. It's like the first scene of the movie Amazing Grace, William Wilberforce, when they were traveling and the horse got so tired from traveling, and the horseman was whipping the horse to get up, And Wilberforce got down from the chariot and told the guy, he said, don't you think that you would save more time instead of using your energy to whip the dead horse to us and not just kind of make it rest or give it water or something? So there's nothing you can do at that point when the passion runs out. And sometimes people's passion are not guarded when there is no system, because it doesn't help them channel their passion in the right place. So these are benefits of what? Of systems. Also, you would grow wealthy when you can build a system. You will grow wealthy. The finance, your personal finance, in one of my, I am grateful to God that I'm married to a beautiful wife, but that would have just not been enough after 11 years of marriage if my wife did not understand system when it comes to managing resources. It's a blessing in my life. I have a loose and I'm a generous guy. I'm not, I don't mean wastage, but for me, I can remove my eyes. If you're close to me, you will know that, but it's good, but also there has to be a system. That's why every charity organization are involved in giving, but there is a system that controls. Otherwise, they won't be in existence today. So that balance has to be there. Not to say my wife is not a generous person, but we have different graces. So if we both are, givers and we don't have a system, at the end of the day, we won't even be able to give. And everything suffers for that. So, but when there is a system in place, we know what to do. For instance, we have, all kinds of insurance, life insurance, we have shares, HSBC and things like that. Left to me, we won't have anything. For me, I just want to know somebody's school fees is paid. For me, I just want to know somebody's happy. I just want to know we can send money to help some people somewhere. We can go on missions. The kids are okay at least. But we won't have those things if there is no system in the place. I was telling somebody recently that, what people think is a shame because, the Bible says something. No direct debit goes out of my account in my house. For me, it's move money to my wife's account because when it comes to financial system, for instance, she's a certified money educator. She's an administrator now. She's completing HR. She's always been, when it comes to administration, it's a gift. So we have to put that kind of system. What happens? So on several occasions, we've sat down. What happens when money comes? What do we do with 500 pounds? 500 pounds comes either through you or through me. What do we do? So there's no argument. Otherwise, we will both not be people of integrity. So we have talked about it. What happens? How do we do it? Where does it go? So it's not a function of, how can you be telling me what to do with my money? It's not a language in my house. Why? Because there is a system. I'm better off submitting to that system and somebody who can run the system. That's why, I was somewhere getting something and I said, hold on, I need to call my wife. And the guy said, do you have to call your wife? Are you not the man of the house? I said, that's why you don't have a home. And the other guy who was with him said, it's a lady. Said, yes, that's a good man. I said, that's why you don't have a home. I said, I have to check. Can I? Can I? I said, why do you have to call? Just pick the thing. You big man like you. I said, no, I know. But I have a home, and I intend to keep my home. Because we've talked about it. We have a system in the place, in the house. So it allows for wealth. You can build wealth when there's system. So we know what to do. We know what not to do. We know where things need to be channeled to. We know where it's not meant to be channeled to. So now I want us to quickly look at building a system. How do you build a system? Like I said, remember, this is the theoretical aspect of what I'm talking about. There's a practical aspect where we will sit down, we would roll our sleeves. You're welcome, man. God bless you. Welcome, sir. So it's both ways. There's a part where we lay a theoretical foundation about system building, but the part I love the most is when I get to roll my sleeves and we sit down with our pen and paper and our board and get down to business. So like I said, I can only attempt to just pass some information out across to us. So building a system, number one, this is one thing that you have to know, especially for us, spiritual organization. This is one of our sickness and the demon we have to kick out. You are bound to run on sentiment without a proper system in place. I have had my fingers burnt in the early days. And a lot of the choices I've made on sentiment are still affecting my organization today. I'll be honest with you. As I'm speaking to you right now, we're still having to deal with the mess of what? Of sentiments. Because we are Christians. That's why I said pragmatism and prophetic are two different things. You can be prophetic, but you also have to be pragmatic. That's where we need to draw the balance. If today's church will be a reformational church, we need to bring a balance back to our spirituality. That spirituality is not without practicality. So we cannot, I am done with sentiments. I have a father's heart. I love, grace. I'm a product of grace. To the extent I named my first child Grace. But I also understand that sometimes you need to grab the bull by the horn. But when there's a system in place, there's no room. That even protects your heart as a leader, protects your emotion. Why? Because the system that is in place is what does the job. You see, over the years, especially dealing with young people, our ministry in Nigeria is basically young people. And, young people can be very emotional, and they can be very quick to be personal, So I realized that I've had to deal with leadership things, management things on an emotional level. Why? Because we have not put appropriate system in place such that would be the yardstick for decision making. So at the end of the day, people, for their lack of, effectiveness, result into personal vendettas. Somebody spoke about me. Oh, pastor doesn't like me. Oh, my cell leader, doesn't like the way I sing. That's why they're doing this to me. No. So I could not address a lot of issues in the past because why? There was no system in place. And that affected our organization as a whole. But not anymore. So the things that we would have had several meetings, one-on-one meetings, counseling meetings, dealing with unnecessary things because there's no system in place. That's why initially I talked about it reduces burnout, work stress. Because now you have to have 20 meetings, but those 20 meetings could be addressed with one system in place. One, exactly. One policy included. I mean, we've been having, particularly on our campus ministry right now, we've been having headache for the last 2 years. But in the last 6 months, we just put additional policies in our document that deals with, wouldn't even show up. It wouldn't even come up on our table anymore. Why? Because we reviewed documents. But yet it has cost us headache for the last couple of years. So sentiment is something that we cannot, when it comes to leadership and management, we have to be careful how we introduce that into what we do. So a few things. I'm disconnected again. Okay, thank you. So first thing we need to do in building a system, establish a clear purpose for your ministry or your organization. Why are we here? What is the purpose for this organization? Because you see, I have watched people because like I said, we've had to deal with different organizations sitting now. What have you done so far? People jump into building a system, building structures that has nothing to do with moving the organizations forward. The first thing in building a system is, what are we here for? What is the purpose? Because you have to structure around your objectives, your ultimate purpose as an organization. As an individual, as a business owner, the first thing is, what is the purpose of this organization? That's where you begin from, and it has to be clear. And that's why we have to spend enough time for clarity. Because once you get this wrong, it's like getting the foundation wrong, and then you build on it. Think about the outcome. I mean, looking at scripturally, even the Bible says, what can the righteous do if the foundation is destroyed? Because this is the foundation of your organization, so you have to get it right here. So I always tell people, don't be quick to trying to build a system. And then people do other mistakes. I'm jumping out of myself here, but I think it's relevant to this point. Right? to build one gigantic, enormous structure, thinking that is what's going to power the vision of the organization. No, it doesn't have to be big. That's the mistake most people do. You can have a simple system and a simple structure that keeps everything together, and as you expand, as you grow, then you can what? You can increase that. So first thing, establish a clear purpose for your ministry. Second thing in building a system is structure around your purpose. And when it comes to structuring, it's not a day job. Like I said, I have spent the last meeting I did was in New York. We spent 3 days, full days. I mean, we were saying it yesterday. How many days we spent together doing this in Glasgow? Same 3 days. And we couldn't even finish. We couldn't finish because you have to structure around the purpose. And that is a lot of details. So that's why I said this is the theoretical aspect of system building. But I think information is the first thing you need to acquire for you to implement whatever it is you want to do. So you have to structure around the purpose. So what exactly is it that we want to do? What do we want to do? What are we here for? For instance, a church, it should be parallel on the 5 universal purposes of the church. Worship, prayer, discipleship, mission, evangelism, all that. But the heartbeat of the church should be clear, because that's the heart of the Father. So how do we structure a church to be able to accommodate people? And when they come, they can feel the same way people felt when they met with Jesus. So if we, in all our structure, we are not structuring around that sole purpose of Christianity, then we might not be as effective as we should. Should we not structure around missions, discipleship, worship? We should. It's important. Fellowship, it's important. But the universal church, if you look at it in its entirety, it's the heart of the Father. So when we structure in every aspect of church life, it must be a constant. Even if you are in training school, the heart of the Father must be revealed, and that has to be structured. Even if you are in discipleship class, even if you are in fellowship, home fellowship, cell meetings, wherever you are. So think about this even in your own organization. What exactly is the purpose of your business? Amongst everything you need to put in place, the structure also needs to help you to facilitate the function of your purpose, the purpose of your organization. Let's move quickly. Number 2, develop a structure for each system. So, for instance, what is a system within an organization? The church, okay, let's use church as my, example here. The church in itself is a system, because looking at it from a living organism, the body, the whole body, I am whole. Every part of my body is a system working together to make me a human being. But within each organs, there is also a system that is powering it. So, as a whole, a system is what makes me this. But each organ, each part of my body also has its own system powering it. So, the church is a system that should be run on a system, but within the church, there are other systems that need to. For instance, the media team over there, that sound booth there, is a system within the church. And it entails a lot of things to enhance the quality of worship and receptivity of worshipers. But if there is no system there, and all we do is show up in the morning, plug and play, we don't know who is in charge of the system. We don't know who does what. We've not broken it down. There's sound, there's camera. Maybe the camera is also hooked up on live streaming, or is connected to some local TV station. There has to be a system that powers everything that happens there. So for us to be able to enhance and get the best of that system, we also need to structure around the system. So whatever structure we have done to power the church, we must find somehow a smaller structure that can power that system over there. So we can't just focus on the general system and forget about the other systems that operates within the organization. So now, start small and expand. One of the mistakes when it comes to a lot of management have done is to create offices without personnel. Never make that mistake. Never make that mistake. We should never create offices without the personnel that would function in that office. There's no big deal about creating a bogus structure. In fact, you would not be able to keep your organization together when your structure is bogus. You see, in the past, in management, there's been a lot of complex structure. But if you study some of the companies today, study Google, they are simplifying their structures every day. Everything is being, look at it. For instance, let's take an example, electronics. Some of the things that I would need 2 or 3 people to carry with me before, if I purchase an electronic device, right now I don't need anybody to help me carry it. I don't need anybody to help me. So, but that is not simplifying things is not at the product level. It begins at management level. That's why they can arrive at simplicity in product or in services. And we need to be thinking like that as church. So when our structure is complex, the outcome in whatever service or product that we are offering as an organization also becomes complex. And when it is complex, that is what they say, it is not user-friendly. Because that is the pursuit. So church, I know the word user-friendly has been bastardized because that now, a lot of people have crossed the line of seeker-friendly church. But the truth is that Jesus was a seeker-friendly human being. That's why the Pharisee and the Sadducee could not understand his concept of being a priest or whatever he calls himself. Why would you be in the class that we are and you can sit down and eat and dine and wine and associate with low-level people? People who when they see us, they're afraid. But when they see you, they run towards you. So there's a concept that we must introduce in church life, but we should not cross the boundary. Because God said we are in the world, but we are not of this world. But that doesn't make us, because the Bible also says that we don't serve a high priest who cannot be touched by the feelings of our infirmity. So it means that we can access him. But what am I trying to say in essence is, let us try and simplify things. It's better, it's cheaper, it's easier. Everybody understands. Everybody understands. So start small. It doesn't have to be big. You see, when an organization is starting, you don't have to. The church is just starting. You have 20 pastors. What are they going to be doing? Think about it. What are they going to be doing? But we were so position-driven that we don't understand that position doesn't make system. System is what should create position when there is need. So we start small. There's nothing wrong with pastor. It's not pride for him to be the only pastor in church. When the time comes, we have an assistant pastor, we have an associate pastor, and when the time comes, we have a pastor over worship, we have a pastor over this, because it's not title, it's function. One of the books that have greatly reformed my thinking about leadership is written by Mark Sabon, one of my heroes. You don't need a title to be a leader. This man has taught me a lot about consulting, and I just referred to him. Who I am as a consultant today, I owe him to Mark Sabon. And he's one of the people that really helped us to embrace the need for leadership. Not leadership by title, because for instance, the title come at the first level of leadership, which is positional leadership. But it's the lowest level of leadership. And that's not where many of us want to be. We may begin from there, but that's not where we want to be. Because you are given a position because you've been the oldest member. But the oldest member doesn't make you the most effective. Because there's a whole lot of things that gets you the place of effective leadership. That's another teaching for another day. But these are the mistakes we make in the past. So that's why we have a bogus structure. Because we want to fit in this. So people feel more involved. Let me tell you something. Ownership of vision does not come because you give them title. They will abuse the office without responsibility. People own vision when the vision is clear. People own vision when the vision is beneficiary to them. You may give them a structure or an office, but they still know that, see, you don't have me in mind. They know you don't have me in mind. You just put me there so you can get the job done. So when we are trying to gain ownership of our team members, it's not by giving them position. It's by making the vision clear. That's why some of the organizations I've studied, they have vision, and I got that because I try to do that when I'm here. We do it twice a year in Nigeria. I do it thrice. Every time I'm in Nigeria, we do vision sharing. And I learned that because I realized that. Let me give you a practical example. When we would raise mission seed here for the campus ministry going on in Nigeria, I would so much just talk about it, Grace House this, church here. So one day I happened to host one of our church members in my house, and I began to show her, the structure of the church in Nigeria, the pictures, and all of that. Janet, and she said to me, she said, Pastor, she said, all this while you've been talking about Grace House, it's been flying over my head. I don't even understand the connection we have with them. Not until now. But in my mind, I felt, you know what? Because I've been shouting about it. But there's a difference between shouting about a vision and sharing a vision. Because I've learned the art of sharing vision. It's communication. And there are several elements in communicating vision that we don't even engage in. The only thing we engage in is the verbal aspect of it. And people grasp things at different levels. So keep it small. And as things grow, let the need create the office. And as the office is created, let the function be established. And let what is expected and the governing policies for that function, let it be created on the spot. And so when anybody is occupying that, they are not only giving a job description, they are only giving policies that confines them to the discipline and what is expected of what they are doing. That way, we'll be able to run a healthy system that will bring about growth and progress. Structure for the next phase. One of the reasons why and I'm using our youth ministry in Nigeria as an example right now, because that's where I'm most actively involved in right now because of my apostolic ministry. And we did something recently because 2 years ago I began to look at succession as we were having new sets coming into campus, joining the church, pastors graduating and going. I realized that the age became younger and younger and younger. And the younger they went was only telling me something. Not only would they be more vibrant and more energetic, which is on the positive side, but on the flip side, it also was showing me they knew little about leadership. So if something was not done, we would just begin to witness the church fizzle out. Because ministry or organization does not only need energy, it needs knowledge. It needs capacity. So the younger they got, I just realized that we were losing the quality that we could have. So what we've done recently in restructuring was to deal with that. I won't go into details. So structure for the next phase of the organization. Okay? My time is fast spent. I'm almost done anyway. Like I said, it's very simple and straightforward. Keep it simple. I said it. Keep it simple. Remove complexity. I said that before, so don't let me go. Then, finally, train the people that will run the system. People succeed in creating a system, but they fail at equipping people. Even when there's a system in place and people are untrained, it will still fail. If you study the history of General Electric's GE before Jack Welch took over, that's a typical case study of what I'm talking about here. There was a system in place that ran GE for several years, and it was a profitable organization. But the system was there, but the people were untrained. So when GE was liquidating and it was about to crash, Jack Welch came in. The first thing he did was not to fire anybody or employ new people or change systems as such. All he did was to set up a leadership training and management school within the organization. And GE went from nothing. And that's why he's so heavy on his leadership and management institutes today. So when there's a system in place and people are not trained, no matter what you do, it's a failure. So put system in place, but let everybody be trained. Currently, we also employed that because of what I just said. So now, last year we instituted a leadership and management training school within our campus churches. So now, last year we ran successfully 4 sessions of training for all our leaders, for all the people, all the workers. Why? Because we have a system, but people need to be equipped to run the system. And we started seeing the desired result that we need to see. So we can maintain progress and productivity. Thank you for your time.